Good evening. I'd like to acknowledge that we're on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish First Nations, their traditional territories including the Kwantlen, the Katzie, and the Semiahmoo. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We're gathered to hear your comments with regard to the land use contract termination bylaw that affects your property. You will have received a notice of termination by mail. My name is Councillor LaFranc. I'm the acting mayor and will be conducting this public hearing. This public hearing is a little different than others you may have attended in the past. At the May 8th, 29th and June 12th, 2017 regular council land use meeting, the public hearings on the various LUCs from these meetings were delegated for me to chair on this date and at this time. Madam Clerk will be taking minutes of the proceedings, and this report will be given to Council to review before the bylaws are to be considered for third and final reading. This public hearing is with regard to the termination of the current LUC, which will bring the underlying zone into effect. The underlying zone assigned to the lands regulated by the LUC being terminated was, at the time it was assigned, the closest equivalent zone to the use and density permitted by the LUC. Also, please note, the termination of the LUC does not force owners to undertake any renovations. We are not here to discuss or address questions regarding the specifics of a future development of your property. For these answers, you must attend the planning counter. Termination of an LUC may or may not affect the future development of a property. This would be dependent on the future proposed development. This type of question or any specific development discussion must be addressed on an individual basis with a planner and not at this hearing. There is an appeal process through the Board of Variance where you may apply for an extension with regard to the timing of the termination of your contract. Again, staff will be around for a short time afterwards to assist with any further questions after our hearing, or you may call our planning department at the number given on your notice. Please note your LUC number and which item on the agenda it is listed under. I will be calling on any speakers who wish to speak to the set of LUCs with common underlying zoning that will eventually come into effect in your particular land use contract. Please note which group your LUC is under on the agenda. Madam Clerk will be reading out the various LUCs grouped by the same underlying zoning that is to come into effect. A map will be shown with the various LUCs highlighted. Then I will call for speakers. I ask that you note which section your LUC is in so you speak at the correct time. When I call for speakers, please state your name and which LUC you are speaking to. May I have the first set of LUCs, Madam Clerk?
The first set of land use contracts have the underlying zoning of community commercial, and that is land use contract number 118, and the addresses are from 12811 to 12867 96th Avenue, all of the odd numbers. Land use contract 313, and that's 10201 to 10239 King George Boulevard, odd numbers again. Then land use contract number 10232 Wally Boulevard. Land use contract 329 at 10392 King George Boulevard. Land use contract 40 at 10322, 10324 and 26 Wally Boulevard. Land use contract number 73, and that's 10753 to 10769 City Parkway, the odd numbers, and 13440 to 13456 108th Avenue, the even numbers. Land use contract number 543 is 8160 and 8170 120th Street. Land use contract 499 is 12761 16th Avenue. And then the last one in this section is land use contract 586, and that is 9320 120th Street. which includes 9320 to 9340 120th Street and 9323 and 9333 120th Street. And those are all with the underlying zoning of community commercial.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to this bylaw? I'll ask for a second time. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to this bylaw? For the third and final time, is there anyone here wishing to speak to this bylaw? Thank you. Next bylaw, Madam Clerk.
Is Land Use Contract 486, and the underlying zoning here is Town Centre Commercial, and it is the addresses within are 9825 to 9839 138th Street, and that's the odd numbers.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to this bylaw? For the second time, is there anyone here wishing to speak to this bylaw? For a third and final time, is there anyone here wishing to speak to this bylaw? Thank you.
The next set of land use contracts are underlying zoning are highway, commercial, industrial. The following land use contracts, 377, and the address for those are 8292, 8294, and 8296, 8298, 120th Street. Land use contract 181, and that's 8220 and 8232, 120th Street. Land use contract 479, and that's 15553 24th Avenue. Land use contract 355, and that's 1938 152nd Street, 15241 19th Avenue. Land use contract 508 is a portion of 9412 120th Street.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to this bylaw? For the second time, is there anyone here wishing to speak to this bylaw? And for the third and final time, is there anyone here wishing to speak to this bylaw? Thank you, Madam Clerk.
The next set have the underlying zoning of local commercial zone, and the first one is Land Use Contract 512, and the address are 1299 72nd Avenue, and Land Use Contract 321, and the underlying or the civic address is 13192 92nd Avenue.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to this bylaw? For the second time, is there anyone here wishing to speak to this bylaw? For the third and final time, is there anyone here wishing to speak to this bylaw? Next bylaw, Madam Clerk.
The underlying zone for these two land use contracts are single-family residential. The first one is Land Use Contract 511, and the addresses are 1329 and 1337 128A Street. And Land Use Contract 161 include 14334, 14348, and 14362 Gladstone Drive, and 11216 143A Street.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to this bylaw? For the second time, is there anyone here wishing to speak to this bylaw? And for the third and final time, is there anyone here wishing to speak to this bylaw? Thank you. Next bylaw, Madam Clerk.
The next bylaw has underlying zoning of single-family residential gross density. The land use contract is number 524. And single-family, sorry. And the addresses involved are between 140th Street to 140B Street and 88th Avenue to 89th Avenue.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to this bylaw? For the second time, is there anyone here wishing to speak to this bylaw? And for the third and final time, is there someone here wishing to speak to this bylaw? Next bylaw, Madam Clerk.
The underlying zoning on this land use contract is half-acre residential zone. The land use contract is 480, and the addresses are 5520 120th Street, 12035 and 12047 New McClellan Road.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to this bylaw? For the second time, is there anyone here wishing to speak to this bylaw? And for the third and final time, is there anyone here wishing to speak to this bylaw? Next bylaw, Madam Clerk.
This is the last land use contract, and the underlying zoning is 1 acre residential. The land use contract is number 558, and the addresses are between 140th Street to 141st Street and 27A Avenue to 28th Avenue.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to this bylaw? For the second time, is there anyone here wishing to speak to this bylaw? For the third and final time, is there anyone here wishing to speak to this bylaw? Thank you, Madam Clerk. So I guess we will now adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone, for coming out today. Thank you, staff.